For a show about pedals, you'd think every once in a while we'd have to plug in one of these. Well, today we get the chance to finally check out something meant for an acoustic electric. What's going on, my friends? I'm SeanPierceJohnson, and this is Stompbox Saturday. If this is your first time watching one of these videos, I am so happy to have you, but if you've been coming back regularly, it is great to see you again. Today, we get to look at something very cool from a brand that is near and dear to my heart. Carvin is back and doing something really cool and introducing more pedal preamps. And today, we are going to look at the KOA Acoustic Guitar Preamp pedal. Now, I could wax poetic about what this brand means to me. When I found out the San Diego factory was closing about 5 years ago now, I was pretty bummed, not only because I was working for the company at the time, but because I had used their gear for so long. And with the KOA, it's sort of a reintroduction of a line of amps Carvin made years ago that I always thought was really underrated, and that was their acoustic amps. There's a ton of great features in the KOA that make it a great tool for live or studio use, and we're gonna run them all down today and hear this thing in action. So let's talk specs, features, and controls so we can finally get to hearing this thing. You can really think of KOA as a 3-in-1 pedal. It combines a preamp, a compressor, and an EQ in one very rugged enclosure. The 3-foot switches on the bottom are a bypass for the compressor, a master mute foot switch, and a bypass for the preamp section. On the top row of controls, we have a blend control, which allows you to go from a flat EQ response, which is essentially equal to whatever your acoustic guitar pickup is sending you, to a fully EQ'd section. It's running through the entire preamp circuit with the EQ, and you can fine-tune the blend, with 12 o'clock being a 50-50 mix. Now, bass, middle, and treble can all boost and cut those respective frequencies, but the mid-range is semi-parametric, basically meaning you have a mid and a freak knob. And the freak knob, essentially standing for frequency, you can sweep from 200 hertz all the way up to 2 kilohertz, and that you can either add in or take out at will, which I think is pretty cool. The bottom row of controls has the master volume on the far left and the input gain on the far right. And between those are the two controls for the compressor, threshold and strength. Now, threshold is the point at which the compressor will start doing its job, whereas strength is the, strength of the compressor, the amount of compression, the apparentness of the compression. And it goes from a very nice light studio grade compression to a much heavier sound that doesn't get too squashy. So I would hesitate to say that it's transparent. I'll just say it's more studio grade. We have two slider switches on top of the enclosure, one for a -10 dB pad going into the preamp, and one for a ground lift for the built-in XLR DI output. On the right of the enclosure is an input for our guitar and a through output / tuner output. On the top of the enclosure, we have our 9-volt input. Yep, this thing runs off just 9 volts, drawing 50 milliamps of power, and a send and return jack for the effects loop. And then on the right of the enclosure, a 1/4-inch output and a balanced XLR output. And one other thing, just in case you want to throw this in a gig bag with your acoustic guitar and roll up to the gig without having to worry about a power supply, or in case your power supply goes down, you can actually power this off a regular old 9-volt battery. And now that we've finished talking about features and specs, it's actually time to get down to hearing the KOA in action. We are going to be using my wife's Taylor GS Minnie that we affectionately call Minnie. First time using this on the channel, and I'm really excited about it. But it's the only acoustic electric I have in the house right now. We're gonna run that into the Carvin KOA, and that is going to go out of the XLR output into my recording interface, which is a PreSonus Studio 192. We'll incorporate some effects into the effects loop later on, but for right now, let's just keep it dry. Now, just a quick little note, I am going to be wearing headphones throughout the majority of the playing examples in this video because I don't want to create any excess feedback in the room with the acoustic. So let's get down to it and check out the range of the EQ controls. First focusing on the bass and the treble, and then we'll get to that semi-parametric mid-range. Now let's move on and check out the compressor on the KOA, which is one of my favorite features of it because compression is just such a useful tool for live acoustic guitar playing. Now this compressor does come after the EQ section and after the effects loop. So if you add in any effects, you can kind of think of this as like a final mastering limiter before you send to your DAW or front of house. I am gonna add in a little bit of hall reverb from the Native Audio Ghost Ridge reverb. I just find it to be a really great mono reverb, and since the effects loop here is mono, let's go ahead and do that. Now let's spend some time messing around with the blend control on KOA. That, my friends, is a little look at the KOA Acoustic Guitar Preamp pedal from Carvin. You know, when I look back on my time with Carvin and when the Legacy Drive was coming out, I remember thinking like this was a great next step for the company, that this was a product that was getting them into the pedal game, but doing it in a bit more of a robust way. It's not just another overdrive pedal. The two preamp pedals, being the Legacy Drive and the X1, are fantastic, and I still love them today. And it's great to see them expand upon the line with these newer pedal preamps. In addition to the KOA, they also have the B1 for bass guitar. If I had to come up with a catch-all descriptor for every component of the KOA preamp, it'd be studio grade. The EQ is incredibly flexible, and that parametric mid-range, or semi-parametric mid-range, you can't adjust the Q after all, is really the secret weapon here. Being able to notch out those offensive frequencies or even adding in some for very specific sounds is a really cool thing. And then the compressor, despite having only two controls, it doesn't sound like your typical two-knob guitar compressor. This thing is, dare I say, transparent. The compression on light settings is very nice and even, but even at higher strength settings where you're really doing some heavy compressing, it doesn't feel like a brick wall limiter, like it's pushing everything down. It's just tying everything together with it's a nice little glue for your guitar sound. Now, I do want to give the KOA one last prop, and that is its footprint and size, because compared to the Legacy Drive, I don't know, this thing might be a third the size. Of course, this has tubes in it. This doesn't have tubes in it. Tubes need space to make sure that the proper ventilation is there and they are tall, you know? But still, this is something that you could easily throw in the front pocket of a gig bag and lay it down on the stage, and it's not gonna take up too much space. Overall, a really well-designed and well-thought-out piece of kit. But of course, all of that is just my opinion, and I wanna hear from you. What did you think of KOA, and what other pedals would you pair up with it? Let me know what you do in the comments section down below. And I'd love your help right now in helping supporting this channel and continuing its growth. Just click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. That's the simplest thing. But if you want to go one step above and beyond that, head to SeanPierceJohnson.com/email-list and sign up for my email newsletter. Links to videos like this and everything else that I work on is sent direct to your email inbox without any algorithmic involvement. All I need is your name and your email address, and you're done. Simple as that. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And until we see each other again, I'm Sean Pierce Johnson, wishing you all watching great tone, great health, and of course, happy stomping. Cheers, friends. See you in the future. God bless.